And the coalition of northern groups is also asking presidential candidates that lost the election to exhibit the spirit of sportsmanship and seek constitutional means of redress if they are convinced that the process was flawed. Spokesman of CNG Abdulaziz Suleiman at a media briefing in Abuja on Thursday says though there were little technical glitches from the Beavers machine, the election was substantially free and fair. The coalition condemns statements credited to former President Olusegun Obasanjo for the election to be cancelled for INEC's failure to pass integrity and transparent tests for the exercise.
Except for scattered reports of late arrival of officials and materials in some places, the commencement of the exercise was so flawless that most prominent Nigerian leaders, including contestants to various offices, acknowledged it as free, fair, and simplified at the point of casting their votes. Despite these reported delays in some places, polling staff generally conducted their duties transparently and diligently. It is important to point out here that for the first time ever, the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, was introduced into the process and it functioned satisfactorily in most polling stations.
The senatorial elections have concluded with a few seats still inconclusive. And as expected of every political transition, winners and losers have emerged. The All Progressives Congress has a simple majority with 51 seats, while the People's Democratic Party leads the minority with 33 seats. Labour Party secured 7 seats, while the Social Democratic Party has 2 seats. On the other hand, Young People's Party has 1 seat, as well as the All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA also having 1 seat. While these figures may not be the final outlook, it does provide sufficient ground to analyze the possibilities and implications these might have for the 10th Senate in the task of building the nation's democracy.
Well, let's bring in our Rise analyst, Associate Professor and lawyer, Sam Amadi. Very warm welcome to Newsnight. I mean, these are very interesting times in the political evolution. Somebody has described it as revolution in Nigeria. And looking at the National Assembly from the Senate, for example, simple majority, not outright majority. The party that they said, or the parties that said they don't have structure, have come to prove that they really have structure. Not only coming third in the presidential election, but garnering, you know, how many 7 seats so in the Senate so far. What are your thoughts here? What kind of National Assembly, nay Senate, are we going to be seeing in the 10th National Assembly?
I think first we're going to see a more dynamic National Assembly. In Nigerian politics, when you have supermajority, instead of it to trigger efficiency, you know, the notion of supermajority elsewhere is that the government has no impediment to getting the agenda delivered. But in Nigeria, it becomes complacency. So, you know, nobody's struggling. But first, the legislators don't even know the policy of the government. So they're not using that majority effectively to push those policies. So now, with a mixed bag, first, leadership will be a lot more contested. You have to, assuming the party that wins has, let's say, a supermajority, that it can safely use his chief whip, use his own party structure to push a candidate, maybe the person the president wants, maybe not the person who is competent enough, then you are stuck, because even if all the other opposition votes is to no avail. Now, the ruling party or the party that wins the majority in the National Assembly will need to negotiate with these other winners, senators who come from different parties. And one negotiating tool will be the quality of the person, acceptability. So that will improve the leadership that will emerge. The second thing we're going to see is policy contestation. Some of those 1 and 7 senators are going to be looking at the interests of their people and their policies they want to achieve. So they basically are ready for you to negotiate. And in negotiating, you're going to push your policy options, tweak them to reflect their ideological and special interests. Basically, the senators represent states, and therefore, some of the, for example, the structuring, you're going to negotiate with them. How are you going to restructure in a way that converges the various interests of the geopolitics? So we're going to see a lot more horse trading, which is part of what legislative business is all about. We're going to see more rigor. And again, there's a blend of youth and age.
The old, yeah.
The old. So most of the very experienced politicians are no longer available in the House. So younger people, it may look like a disadvantage. You know, sometimes we've argued for continuity because people say, oh, experience. But let me tell you, legislative work calls more for creativity than really experience. What that means that, look, there are experts to advise you. So let's say take gender equality. If you are too conservative and you don't want gender equality, no kind of experience, 25 years
would
make any sense. Yeah. You would prefer a younger person, maybe a 35-year-old female who really wants gender, so she will be more effective in pushing gender equality than a 70-year-old man who all his life has been in the National Assembly experience. So this is not where you need experience. Sometimes we need freshness, idealism. So I will bank more on idealism than experience, because experience has not really worked. So we're going to see more idealism, diversity, and a more rigorous National Assembly with this kind of composition.
Indeed. We keep our fingers crossed. So it's definitely going to be a plethora of new lawmakers amid the old. We still have a lot of old people. Maybe not a lot, but we have old people. But I want to ask you about the upsets that we saw, especially for the Senate seats. We had about, I think my last count was 6 or 7 governors whose bid were stopped because they lost their bid to the Senate.
Yeah.
What would you attribute that to? Are Nigerians becoming more politically aware? And on the other hand, do you think that Nigerians gave this level of election enough attention like they did for the presidential?
Well, it's domino effect. The focus was presidency. And once you match the presidential with this other election, take for example the FCT. For the first time, we have my friend Aduda off. I mean, of us,
your friend, finally lost.
Yeah, many of us will be very happy he goes. I mean, not because he's not competent. I've once raised the issue. I asked him, when will you throw the towel? He says never. Now, what got him off is actually dominophobia factor.
Yeah. And a woman.
A woman. And so nobody would have, if the woman ordinarily ran like before, people would say, oh, a woman, or not a native. But when they are, most of the people who I asked after, after ballot, they said they just voted Labour Party. They didn't even know, many people didn't even know her. Yeah. So the domino effect worked. Again, beavers, if we had electronic transmission, I assure you, some of the governors who made it, or the other people like coaches or Kaido, probably couldn't have made it. Or might them. Let me tell you the thing. You see, I tell people that it's irrational to assume that a poor leader, a bad leader, will be elected by the people. People vote who they like ability. So if we see terrible governors who have not paid salaries for 8 months, 9 months, who have been brutish, imprisoning their people, killing their people, there's no chance in the free and fair election that they win. Because when those people go into that box, they remember the atrocities of these people, and they will not vote for them. Anybody who wants Nigeria to work should allow free and fair election. I tell you, if you do a free and fair election, which means election where there are no mutilation, like we saw, where people take the ballot paper and exchange it, 90% of these governors will not win a seat. Look at South.
Because you think they're not popular.
Because it can't be popular when it didn't govern well. You see, likability is the popularity of election. So, for example, if you've not done well, you've not paid salaries, let's take for example, a place like maybe Otom, Benue, okay? Even though he supported the Labour Party.
And Labour Party won.
He still lost his seat because...
No, he had made it clear that it
he was
doesn't
prepared.
bother him.
But the point is that losing
know,
to APC seat because of the Reverend Father, who has public appeal. Elections are about likability. But in Nigeria, it's about structure. That structure is simply rigging. Because people will always vote who they like. If you watch when we had no party basis during Babangida for local government, so many women won local government because in their locality, probably they like them.
You're popular.
You're popular. You don't have the cost to throw the cost of going to Abuja to get nomination. You say, I want to run on no party basis. They say, oh, Mami Former or Mama Aisha, person they love. So this point about beavers and electronic transmission could be a magic combination. And if you do it well, I tell you, 70% of people in the National Assembly who did nothing for their people, who raised no voice when they were being persecuted, can't come back. People will never vote for persons they think didn't perform for them. And that's what we're seeing from this election.
Yeah. Let's look at the leadership composition, you know, when the 10th Senate will convene sometimes in June 4th or thereabouts, you know. 109 senators. To elect the president of the Senate, you need a 2/3 majority. The leading party now does not have that. It's just simple majority. The kind of horse trading that we're going to see, is it possible really for the opposition, the main opposition parties, you know, to merge and the rest and produce a president of the Senate?
Well, look at the numbers. If they can all come together and maybe they'll be close to beating or close enough. So what will happen is this. None of them, even if they come together, they won't get the 2/3. I mean, if oppositions come together, they will not get the 2/3. What I see happen is a splitter group. Now, we saw under Tambuwal, under Jonathan's presidency, when the party wanted to give it to Adol, the lady from the southwest. But Tinubu, who is now president-elect, and a branch fallout group, Tambuwal group, plotted and defeated the PDP because they took all their APC plus the PDP group that Tambuwal and Ameki Hedohan are ready together to defeat it. So we're going to see that this will impose realism on the president-elect if he survives the electoral contest. He will now look at who will be acceptable. For example, first issue will be geopolitics. Where does it go to? Let's say the Senate president.
You've brought something up, you know, that is already in
balancing
the air, you know,
power.
balancing
of power.
and the rest.
Where should it go to?
For APC and the Southeast, you cannot go to the Southeast. Ojikalu is warming up from the Southeast. That the Southeast did not give APC any vote.
Well, the point about political realism is that you're not going to be gung-ho. They didn't give you a vote. Two things. Internal work of the party leadership, Ojikalu has a stake. He will say, okay, basically, you have to give Southeast something, whether it worked or not worked. Again, Tinubu is talking about the mandate, if he sells through, is very limited. This is about less than 10% of registered voters choosing you as a president. It's a team mandate. Now, the country is even in a worse situation than in 2015, when Buhari made his infamous 97.5%, blah, blah, blah. It's even a worse situation. And the Tinubu himself has said, look, inclusion. So the first inclusion is geopolitical balancing. You see, you don't win the battle and lose the war. You can win the bragging battle of who gave us 55% or who gave us 30% and lose the war of running a government that all through. What we've seen now is a balance of force. No party has a compelling strength. So let's assume in March 11, Labour Party, as is likely, wins 1, 2, 3, 4 governorship seats. You've created a bloc that can actually hold the state unstable. PDP has strong enough base to negotiate and destabilize. So basically, the first realism is that, look, you didn't win you don't have a convincing mandate. And that's why in American politics, we talk more about when you have a super majority, then you have a majority to override. But when you have a little majority and you win, like we did now, there's also a question of, well, you didn't win Abuja, they won 12 states, okay? So it's not really a big deal. 8 million point to 6 million point. Now, the opposition, if they put all their millions together, is almost close to double your million. So basically, you are put in a position where you have to negotiate and construct an alliance. It's not time for gung-ho or triumphalism. It's a time to say, how do we balance all this? So if it's Southeast or North Central or Northwest or South-South or whatever, you have to balance. Then within that balance too, you now begin to see ambition within the party conclave. What will still happen is that some of those people who want to be Senate president will go and play either ethnic card or group card with their friends in other parties. And you might see 4 or 3 APC senators angling for Ababio probably would want to be there. I'm talking about people who are ambitious and who think that senior guys, former governors or whatever. Omahe will probably, even though it's a first timer.
Well, don't rule out Senator Chimaruka Namani.
Well, if he wins, exactly, he will be a strong contender because of both relationship experience.
Yes.
And how he manages his party status, whether he's still PDP or he has decamped, we don't know. But the intricacy here will be such that it's not something taken for, it's not a slam dunk. It won't be like, APC, national chairman meets with the leader and say, we must be this person. Okay. They have to, even within their party, consult well. Because if there's a split in that party and forms coalition with the opposition, they win.
Lobby.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have a situation on ground where President Muhammadu Buhari is from the northwest. The vice president, Yemi Osinbajo, is from the southwest. The president of the Senate,
is from the northeast.
Mohammed Lamford, and of course, the speaker of the House of Representatives is from the southwest. So that situation did stay throughout the Ninth Assembly. What's to say that the situation would not play out again in the 10th Assembly? Although you talk about this geopolitics and balancing of power, but can they get away with it again?
Not that it's impossible in politics, but it's about the cost. See, you can even make everybody come from southwest. I mean, both the speaker, the level southwest. If you can pull it through, it might be. But look at how you look at distance. Buhari didn't actually pull through. You know, our people have a proverb. It says, when a man survives from a woman suffers from sickness and the daughter dies, he hasn't survived. You run a government where you are perennially fighting insurrection, perennially fighting with IPOB, fighting with. So basically, instability is not what you can what we call model through. You model through. You know, they fight you fight them back. You send troops to Cobra Dance in Southeast. Then they kill 200 people. You send. What the new president wants is to start off well with some reposition of trust for him. So my issue is, look, Senate president, whatever you give people, don't change the real outcome of people, everyday people. So what did we gain with the VP and the speaker from Southwest? Did it change price index, income? If you look at poverty and multidimensional poverty or income poverty from 2015 to 2018, you can't see a change, a shift that's caused by allocation of position. So this doesn't really matter much for human beings, but it matters for symbolism. And it matters for the formation of anger and injury. You see, the thing about conflicts are not driven by real concrete things. They're driven by optics. They're driven by what we call manufactured resentment, manufactured deprivation. So if you, on the day of July 4th or June 4th, you look at the landscape, President Tinubu, for example, Vice President Shetima from Northeast, Speaker, let's say Senate President from the Northwest, whoever it is, and then you see Speaker from South, and then you don't see anybody in Southeast. Well, the first thing you tell yourself is we are back to the trenches, and that's what it is really. Again, this is very important.
So again, if you say that, Prof, then positions can really help to douse certain
that's the point. That's saying for conflict. Yes. It might not materialize in human. Nobody sits back and says, "How much did you change the guy?"
If a Tinubu president, if Tinubu as president sits down, he's a great chess player when it comes to Nigerian politics and the rest. Of course, he wants stability in the southeast
to start with.
To start with, and two, he'll be thinking ahead another 4 years on how to, capture the votes.
And nothing says
better than
it cannot
his
be a better. See, in politics, people can move from resentment to acceptance, and can move from acceptance to resentment. So like you said, it's all about dialectics. You can't say, oh, they don't like me, and therefore I'm stuck there. They didn't vote for me. I don't think he actually thinks that they would, in a real contest between him and the P2B from the Southeast, with P2B's national appeal to young people, that there's nothing strange that Southeast actually voted for Obi. I mean, just like me, if I look at myself, who am I going to vote for? I see Obi without the history, pedigree, personality, perception, and the youthful movement. I would be tempted, even if I was an APC member, to go and do that vote. So anybody who's looking at who voted for who in this election is getting it wrong. This election that several factors played in. And so I think Tinubu's game was to get as much as he could. I took himself, even though PDP is, is, so to say, his field of play, but now he got wiped off. I think they also will be gracious to say, well, probably we should have expected that this zone will go to P2B.
So this means it's good for our democracy, what we're seeing so far in the National Assembly.
Absolutely.
Great, fantastic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, a rights analyst and lawyer, just like the president of the Nigerian Bar Association said earlier. He said, the Nigerian election is a revolution. You know, a revolution in waiting that is still going to continue.
Absolutely.
And we hope positive.
Yeah.